Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Pac-12 Chat Show Live here on the Voice of College Football channel and its USC and Oregon subsidiary channels. We're excited tonight to bring you guys a really special episode. We've got a few things going on. First and foremost, we're going to talk to legendary USC wide receiver and broadcaster John Jackson and get JJ's take on the Pac-12 championship game, the Heisman Trophy, and the upcoming Cotton Bowl. Then we're going to delve into the big news today that UCLA has been cleared to join the Big Ten. We'll be probably paying a little calimony, I think, as the little tax to Berkeley's being called. We're going to talk about the pirate himself, famous Washington State coach Mike Leach, and we're going to preview 2 upcoming Pac-12 bowls coming this week. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're glad to have you guys here for the ride. Now, just a couple of quick things. We are going to want you guys to call in. We're going to want your opinion. We're going to want to hear from you guys. But a couple of just quick reminders for everybody in the chat and everybody calling. As always, try to be constructive, be interesting, add value. You can be funny, but don't be a jerk and keep it related to the Pac. We're not here to talk about Ohio State, Michigan. As always, no personal attacks on guest callers or chatters. No incessant, wordless negative trolling, absolutely no derogatory or discriminatory nonsense, and do not harass, whine, or challenge our moderator team who volunteer their time. We will just automatically nuke you if you do any of that. So, without further ado, let's get into today's big adventure. Guys, welcome John Jackson. JJ, welcome back to the Pac-12 Chat Show.
Oh, guys, it's great.
JJ, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing really good. Trying to get brushed up USC Tulane information and sort of reflecting on this. I during when the Heisman Trophy, which is served. To be honest with you, when trophies go out, you always want it to go to somebody. There's not somebody that fell into it or just happened to be at the right time. Not Caleb. Caleb Williams is class act, and he is everything. It was no surprise to me that injury tried to make it through in the Pac-12 championship. Unfortunately, we fell short, but what that by Caleb. And after all I think about was, what Kobe Bryant, you have to play through the pain. I thought that's what he was thinking about, and trying to make it through and carry. But it sort of shows that his mentality and his mental makeup, as well as his physical makeup.
Rick, all right, it's really choppy, I think, for everybody somehow.
Okay, JJ, hold on one second. I'm going to take you down, and we're going to try to reconnect. Hold on one second.
All right, guys. While we do that, let's kind of laugh at what's going on here in the chat. Everybody's here is chuckling. I love this. Laughing about calimony, laughing about the UC Regents today. My favorite line today, guys, and here, let me put this up. While LBC tries to get that fixed, the vote today was 11-5 with the UC Regents, and I love this comment here from Matt Brown, who one of our favorite authors here on the we recommend his book here on the show a lot. Pointed out, what's more Big Ten than finding a way to win 11-5? And reminding us already that the UC Regents already showed how much they love to punt. So it's Big Ten material already. Lots of UCLA in the Big Ten. And Chad, UCLA Maltese, you guys know him probably pretty well around Twitter. He's great. He already found how Cal could best spend some of that alimony money they're going to be getting. Just so happens the amount they're getting will pay Justin Wilcox's buyout, should that magically become necessary in the next year or so.
Chris, what do you think? Sigh of relief now that the Bruins are officially in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, right? But yeah, I mean, I'll get into it more later, but like just real quick on Cal with like their basketball team not yet to win a game, and the way the UCLA game went for Cal. I think this is Cal's first win in major revenue sports since the big game versus Stanford.
And we're going to be talking about this a little more, guys. A couple quick questions I'm seeing in the chat. That money is supposed to be annually. Jason's asking, who are the 5 regions who voted no? Interestingly, they were all very Berkeley-centric regions. So it's actually the student region who's at Berkeley. It's a number of Berkeley alums. It's the Berkeley alum who made all the really snide comments in the last meeting. They were the ones who voted no. And just from the way that things went, you could tell there must have been a fiery and fascinating closed session meeting that actually ran for about an hour and a half before the meeting itself. So they popped out and they immediately said, we have 11 standards and we want to vote on those, and boom, it went through after they raised the amount. So the Calimony amount, the amount that UCLA will have to pay Cal every year, which is a little bit up for debate. And again, thank you guys for your patience as we try to get JJ's audio fixed. That amount is going to be between $2 and $10 million a year, depending on what happens with the Pac-12 media deal. So just a reminder that when they did the valuation, they said that Cal was being damaged by UCLA to the tune of $3 million a year. And that Cal was being damaged by Cal was being damaged by we saw Tim and LBC, we're still having the same mic issue.
Yeah, I just checked it.
That the Cal was being damaged by USC to the tune of $9 to $10 million a year. So they did the number where it comes from is the amount that Cal has been damaged by UCLA. So there you go. They think it's between $2 and $10 million. It's probably about 3. UC Region Gumby, Clark Kerr is still running University of California from the grave. Remember, Clark Kerr created the Pac-12, and Clark Kerr and Glenn Seaborg did so in a way that actually gave uneven revenue. So Clark Kerr and Glenn Seaborg were all about giving more money to USC and UCLA and Cal and Washington and less money to everybody else later on the way. Jason's saying, oh, if it's Berkeley people, that makes sense. Yeah. There was a lot of really interesting stuff. I'll tell you guys, and again, we're fixing the issue with JJ and his audio right now, but I'll tell you guys something that was really interesting to me about this. And that is alumni Regent Ellis, who's actually from UC Merced. He made some really, really good points. And he pointed out, he said, first of all, again, he's not from Cal or from UCLA. He's from UC Merced, and he's a really successful guy, does a lot of interesting stuff, real involved in like students with disabilities and things like that. And one of the things that he said is, he said, remember, guys, we compete as campuses. That's why we each have our own mascots. In athletics, we compete as campuses. And one of his bigger issues is he didn't like this idea of subsidizing, because he pointed out that when you subsidize, you're subsidizing somebody based on, how the money they're getting in from sports. So why aren't we also subsidizing people based on research? So why isn't UCLA and UC Riverside taking money from UC San Francisco, the medical school, from their research money?
Why isn't Cal paying UCI to help its basketball and whatever other programs?
Exactly.
Like Cal makes more than UCI.
Right, where are we at now?
We don't have JJ on.
We lost JJ.
We lost JJ. Exactly. So why isn't Cal subsidizing UC Merced and UCI? And again, Alumni Region Ellis was very much pointing out that he thought it was baloney. And I did love my favorite take from Rex Volcano on Twitter, though I don't have a screen capture of it, is he said, finally, we're getting a little bit of royalties from UCLA stealing our fight song for all those years.
You're in the show.
Okay. All right. We got JJ back, guys. Let's see. How's that sound? JJ?
There we go.
Much better.
I got
Okay.
you. Much
Great. Great. Sorry
All
about
right,
that.
guys, let's get back to what's interesting.
So, JJ, you were talking about, you were breaking up a little bit, but you had mentioned about Caleb Williams and the Heisman. What were your thoughts?
So, I mean, you got a guy that had as much success as he had. He played, finished the game with a pulled hamstring or whatever the injury was. You could tell he was in severe, but he was willing to try to play through it. All he thought about was Kobe Bryant. Kobe says, you have to play through it. I just thought that was a quote, that's what's going through his mind, trying to make it through the end.
We're still breaking up, Rick.
All right.
But I will tell you that Caleb is a class in terms of his personality, the way he carries himself, and also, how he'll sacrifice for his teammates. So true leadership. That was like the ice.
Okay, JJ, we're going to have to hold on a second.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Question for you. Do you have like headphones possibly? I'm thinking maybe it might be noise canceling through your mic to your, do you know what I mean? Coming through your speaker and noise canceling through your mic.
Oh, I just think it's my lousy internet, but let me try that. Hold on.
No, I think that might solve the problem. I'm not sure though. But,
all right, guys, and bear with us, guys. Sorry, as we try to solve this audio issue here.
I'm with JJ. The way that the gut that Caleb showed. I mean, playing with injuries like a pulled hamstring or bruised ribs or these painful injuries and things, it takes a lot of guts. I'm hoping again with the technology as well that they have these days, guys come back faster than ever from these injuries, high ankle sprains. They have procedures stuff that bring them back. I'm not saying that's the case with that pulled hamstring, but I do believe that Caleb's a gamer and he's the kind of guy that will be out there if it's humanly possible. The only question I have is how long will we have him for in the game and how effective will he be? Because with a hamstring pull, man, that thing can come back, at any moment. You could be healed up for 5-6 weeks, and then all of a sudden he pushes off, right? Or he goes to a full sprint and he can pull up on you really quick again. So I hope that Miller's ready at the very least.
Miller's been ready, I think. That's for sure.
JJ, let's can you hear me now, JJ?
Yes.
Okay, so have you ever experienced a hamstring issue when in your playing days? Walk us through what that's like in terms of managing the pain, the recovery, the rehab.
Yeah, I tell you, hamstrings are it's really difficult because you feel good or you can feel good walking around. So you think you're healthy enough to run and all that kind of stuff. And then you get out there and run and you tweak it or, strain it again, even pull it again. And that's the thing that's tricky about the hamstrings. I actually had a pulled hamstring when I went to camp with the Washington Redskins when Norv Turner was the coach. And I was in minicamp, and I was coming off a pulled hamstring, and lo and behold, while we were in practice, I pulled it again, and could not continue to practice. And Norv had to bring me in and say, "Hey, JJ, I like you because with this pulled hamstring, he could not do that in the fair. Although we are both Trojans, he could not do that in the fairness to the team. to sign me when I was injured. So it actually, I had opportunities playing the Washington Redskins when they were really good. I went back to the Arizona Cardinals, where, of course, if you know those years, we didn't make the playoffs or anything. So I credit my lack of making it and possibly a Super Bowl chance to a pulled hamstring. So I definitely have a familiarity with hamstring. They're tough, and they can come back anytime. But as far as Caleb goes, I have no inside information. Let's make sure that's very clear. Is that, I think that he'll give it a go. I mean, I think the way he finished that game and the way he's going to go about his rehab, and, the way that, especially the USC medical staff is as good as they are, I think that they'll get him. He might not be able to open up and run full speed, but I think that he'll try to give it a go when the bowl game, when it comes for the game. But I don't have any information on how he's doing from a health standpoint.
Yeah, they've been keeping that stuff really tight, the vest, right? As far as injuries all year. So I don't think we'll hear any practice game plan.
They will not let injury.
We report less on injuries than the Soviets reported on nuclear weapons.
Yeah, even with my son on the team, I have no information. So,
well, we don't want JJ3 in trouble, so we're good with that.
We're not getting him in trouble.
Hey, real quick, how is the sound now that I've got the phone up next to the microphone? My microphone.
You're good, Rick.
Are we good? Okay, JJ. So we talked about Caleb. What did you think of the ceremony? You've covered JJ all year with Pete Arbogast on the USC flagship station, KABC 790. Let our viewers in the chat, there's been some discussion that, there's haters everywhere, but some discussion from certain teams of certain conferences that, Caleb had an easier road because the Pac-12 defenses were weak. What is your, since somebody who you've seen them all year versus some of these fans that are haters and maybe seen one or two games that Caleb Williams played and are too lazy to actually have an evaluation. What would you say to that in terms of Caleb's play all year?
Well, everybody's entitled to their opinion, of course, but the one thing is, if you're Caleb Williams, you have to realize, and this is what people don't realize. I think they realize it, but they probably don't readily say it. Is that when you are the marked man on a team, where you're the main target they're trying to stop. Everybody's game plan from a defensive standpoint is to stop Caleb Williams. And all year long, game in and game out, nobody could do it. That's the true sign of a champion. When you talk about the great players in any sport, Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, those are great players. Michael Jordan. When you have those great players and the whole game plan is set to try to stop them, and you still can't stop them, you know what they're going to do, and they still do it to you. That is what shows greatness in my eyes. It's one thing to have a great game and nobody was really game planning for you. Everybody was game planning for Caleb since game number one and used every film from the previous game to try to stop him and try to get some tendencies. And you knew what he was going to do and what he tried to do in every single game, or what they wanted to do. And he still was able to execute. That to me is why he won the trophy. It was like he was still dominant when everybody was trying to stop him, and you still couldn't do anything about it.
That's a great point, JJ. And, you were a wide receiver on that 1988 team with Rodney Peete. And Rodney Peete had a heck of a year. And he was in the competition for the Heisman. Ultimately, it went to Barry Sanders. But did you recognize any similarities for the defenses that were game planning for Rodney Peete. You were there. You were his receiver. What was that like in those games, knowing that they were coming after Rodney Peete to stop him?
Yeah, teams would try different things. That's the other thing. You have to be when you're great. You have to be prepared for something new, because if the week before you had success, you can best believe the other team, the next team you play, is going to try to game plan around to make sure you see some different looks and something different every week. And that's what was the challenge when I played with Rodney, is that we always had to be on our toes for the next new wrinkle that the next team was going to show. We knew what we did well, and we knew they were going to try to stop Rodney. Of course, Rodney was mobile as well; he could run. And we actually had a little bit. Nobody remembers this, but we actually had a little bit of option running as well. Rodney, not often, but ran the option at times to keep teams balanced, keep them honest, so they could not, collapse on one part of our game, and we could bring a new wrinkle to them, as well as they were bringing new wrinkles to our style of play. So that's the thing, is when you have a great player like that on your team, you know that they're going to do something different to stop him. But the problem is, of course, you don't know what it is. Rodney was that type of player, and I think that's what made it great is, we played UCLA, of course, in week 11, and with 10 games of film tape on Rodney, and we had to win some close games throughout that season, they still were not able to stop him or come up with a game plan to stop him. And he still was able to get done what he wanted to, using different styles of our offense and different players from week to week. And Rodney distributed the ball around, fairly equally, so everybody could be a weapon in our offense. And when you have a guy like that, and you're playing with that kind of pressure, even as a player on the field, you have to adapt to all these different looks that the teams are doing, because they're trying to stop Rodney, and you're like, hey, Rodney, this is all your fault. Because you're such a good player, these teams are running all these different coverages and everything else to try to stop us. And, he was a leader just like Caleb and some of the other great quarterbacks that have played at USC, that he would identify, come to the sideline and tell us what they're doing. And, hey, guys, we have to do this, that, and the other to try to make a big play to counter what the other team was trying to do to us. And it's just the excitement of playing with a great player. And the USC offense, you can tell the way the players talk about Caleb, they really love him as a person and as a player. They respect him, of course, a player. Everybody does. But they love him as a person. You can see how they rally it with him. How about him taking the whole offensive line back to New York for the Heisman? That was great to me.
That was incredible. And, he was well deserving of the Heisman. We appreciate your insight, your stories with Rodney Peete back when you were playing, because he was up for the Heisman and ultimately went to Barry Sanders. I mean, not a bad guy to lose to when you look back at history. Yeah. But what is your take now, as you and Pete have been talking, Pete Arbogast, that is, as we move towards Tulane and the Cotton Bowl? What do you think about the upcoming Cotton Bowl game with Tulane as the opponent?
Well, the first thing I think is, and you're starting to see this, I think a little bit slowly, I think that Lincoln Riley is going to have to really do a good job of not only, worried about transfer portal players, but also recruiting the players that he has on his team now. You're seeing some defections, from this team. And remember, continuity isn't just with the starters or with the great players. Continuity comes with the depth on the team, and some guys are playing maybe a smaller role but a key role. And I think it's really critical right now for Lincoln and the staff to really do a good recruiting job on the players that they have. I mean, of course they're going to bring in more guys to the transfer portal. They got Jordan Addison through the transfer portal, which was a great pickup, obviously. He'll, of course, look to strike gold once again in the transfer portal, and that might happen. But I also think some of the guys that you have that that were critical pieces to the puzzle, you have to make sure you keep them and somehow try to find a way to keep them happy as well so they can achieve their goals.
Yeah, they lost a couple linebackers. They lost Julian Simon and Raylan Goforth, which is some depth right there, especially Goforth.
Goforth is a huge loss in my opinion.
I agree.
I think I've seen him since high school. He played at St. John Bosco. I covered him in high school, and he's a very versatile linebacker in terms of he can play inside, outside. He can cover tight ends. He's very athletic. He's like a combination between a defensive edge rusher or outside defensive end and a safety. He is very mobile and very athletic. I think he's a big puzzle on the defense.
He was the guy that put that big stick on. He was the guy who put that big stick on Rising in that game. He's the one that knocked him the helmet off and knocked him silly.
That's
right. They're gonna miss him.
Well, and that's going to be critical because Tulane's got a running back, a junior, by the name of Tyjae Spears. He's rushed for 1,376 yards this year. His last 7 games, he's rushed for at least 120 yards a game in the last 7 games. So he's coming on. He's got 15 touchdowns. So you got him, and then you got the quarterback, Michael Pratt. Michael Pratt has been coming on. He had his best game in the AAC championship game against UCF. He was 20 of 33 for 394 yards, 4 TDs and an interception. He had touchdown passes of 43, 73, and 60 yards, very explosive. And Tyjae Spears had a 60-yard run in that game as well for a touchdown. So USC is going to have their defense is going to be pressured, both the running game and the passing game. Michael Pratt on the year, 2,776 yards, 25 TDs, 5 interceptions. And he's also, like Caleb, rushed for 395 yards and 10 TDs. So USC is going to have their hands full with Tulane. A lot of people don't know about Tulane, 11-2, champions of the AAC. And Willie Fritz is an incredible coach. What do you think, JJ?
Well, and I also think, you could see the writing on the wall in this game is that Tulane is 11-2. So if you're the coach or you're the staff at Tulane, you're telling your players, hey, how many of you guys got offered by USC? How many of you guys had the choice on signing day to go to USC? And of course, nobody in the room will raise their hand because not many of those guys have the opportunity to come to USC. And so they're going to approach it as a form of disrespect. And when you're 11-2 and you've had that much success, about winning, and you can go into a game like this not being scared because you've had so much success this whole season. And what a way to cap it off, but to beat a team at USC who is highly ranked, and they're going to think overlooking them or disrespecting them. And this is a chance to put on the map, gain some respect for their conference as well.
Yeah, it's a chip on the shoulder game for Tulane. They have nothing to lose. They're playing with house money.
Correct. And so with that being said, now you start to say, is the USC team going to be ready to play? Now, I think that Lincoln Riley will have them ready, but I don't think he's going to allow them to overlook them, during. I can tell you that, guys, this much so far. My son is like, he told me, Dad, it's hard to he's so sore from their practices. It's even hard to sit down and go to the bed. Of course, I'm over here laughing, thinking he deserves it. But the Lincoln Riley has not.
That's funny.
one bit to make sure that they stay focused in this game. I think that they will be ready to play. And by the time the game comes, they're going to be so mad that Lincoln is working them so hard that they'll be ready to play.
So what you're telling me, JJ, is they're not overlooking Tulane. USC wants to win this game.
Yes, I think especially you got to remember on USC's team, it's very competitive in the position groups and every place else. And if you're not getting the job done, they will find somebody that will.
Yep.
I mean, not only even in the transfer portal, right? I mean, you got to feel like you're playing for your spot on the team next year, the way that they're going, and they as aggressive as you would assume that Lincoln Riley and their staff are going to be in the transfer portal. You got to assume that right now, if you want to, try to, either solidify or strengthen your position or perception, you got to play well in this game to do it.
Yeah, I don't think any of the players are going to be over. This will be the first bowl game since that Holiday Bowl, and then the year before that they didn't go to a bowl. So USC players really don't have a lot. They got to be hungry for bowl games. So I don't think anyone's gonna be overlooking it or feeling like they don't want to be in a Cotton Bowl, which is amazing. I know that not going to the playoffs might be a bit of a letdown, but it's still a New York 6 game, and it's not like these guys have been a bunch of bowl games. I think they'll be hungry and ready. Question will be, will the opt-outs and the injuries affect their play? That's the big question. Not the motivation.
Guys, remember, if you're a USC player, and I can tell you how they feel shunned that they didn't get an opportunity to get in the Final Four. They thought that, of course, with their season, they had, victories over UCLA, Notre Dame. With the season they had, they're upset that they're not in the finals, in the Final Four. After the season they had, they feel like they could play with anybody. I think that they feel that Utah doesn't get enough credit. So the ability to play with Utah and have the close games that they had with them this year. Excuse me, guys. Other teams get more respect for their loss, or they don't get knocked as much. So I think this is a chance for. First of all, USC needs this to help the perception of the conference. The way that the good season that they had, the expectation for them to come out, make a good showing, and beat Tulane, not destroy Tulane, but beat them. It should and that's what I think that they're preparing for. I think that they'll be ready to play a good game. They're capable of it, and that's what I'm expecting on January 2nd, which is my birthday. I just want to tell you.
Oh, well, JJ, we hope that the Trojans deliver on your birthday. It'd be great to give you that birthday present with a Cotton Bowl win, especially for your son as well. We appreciate your insight tonight on the Heisman, the upcoming Cotton Bowl. Sorry about the difficulties, technical difficulties, but you're fantastic. Any last thing you'd like to leave with the viewers on the Pac-12 live chat show this evening?
Well, guys, I'll tell you that I'm working on my birthday, so they better win. Otherwise, I'm going to be extremely upset. My son will be the first one to hear it.
Well, JJ, I hope one of these days we get a chance to pick your brain about recruiting, because I know you had your son at Sarah, and you had yours at Bishop Amont, and you were years with what the Fox. I used to watch all the time on Fox Sports West, doing the high school shows and talking about recruiting. So one of these days, hopefully during the recruiting season here, right before maybe early signing day, if we could steal you again, I would love to ask you a ton of questions about recruiting.
Of course, guys, no problem.
Hey, JJ, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and fight on, and good luck to your son in the Cotton Bowl. What a great experience for him.
Hey, fight on, guys, and happy birthday to me.
Yeah. Happy birthday, JJ, and have a great holiday season. A Merry Christmas, and we're glad that you're here, brother.
All right. Thank you, man.
God bless you. Bye bye.
God bless you guys.
Bye bye.
Wow, amazing again, Rick. Thanks again for setting that up, Rick.
Tony, you're muted.
I'm muted. Thank you, Rick, and thank you to JJ. How cool was that? Just absolutely hard to get better insight from anybody on the teams and the games and what it's like with the Heisman Trophy. So
anytime you get anytime we can get a first team all Pac-12 wide receiver on our show, we're gonna leap at that opportunity. Absolutely.
Who's the father of another current star as well?
Hey man, that was about halftime adjustments there. We had technical difficulties, but hopefully we figured it out. We appreciate your patience in our viewers in the chat. We did the best we could, and we really appreciate JJ because he's got a unique perspective as you guys laid out. So big thank you to him for coming back on. And yes, Tim, a great ask. We will get him on. Not for early signing day since it's next week, but we'll get him before February. And we'll take a look at the transfer portal, and we'll also take a look at all the signees for the class of 2023.
A way to improvise, Rick. But you improvised just like Caleb Williams in the backfield, man. That was you made it happen. I don't know how you did it, but you got it done. So thank you.
I like it. We made it work, and thank you guys again for that. All right, shall we jump into where we kind of were already talking about UCLA and the UC Regents decision? So, so we did kind of laugh at this. Once again, the final Regents vote allowing UCLA to go was 11-5. UCLA is now officially joining the Big Ten. So that issue is now settled. One thing I thought was interesting, guys, and we didn't talk about this when it came out, but that we now have access actually to some of the letters between UCLA Chancellor Block and Washington's President Kelsey, and President Kelsey is the 12. I just thought we'd read this to you guys, and I'll read it out loud for people who can't really read it on the screen. Chancellor Block wrote a letter to Dr. Kelsey, and remember, Chancellor Block is one of the most senior people in the Pac-12. He's been chairman of the Pac-12 before. He's been in this role for a very long time. And he said to her, I want to send you a personal note to express my sincere. He sent this to her the day after the announcement happened. So this was the day after we announced that UCLA was going to the Big Ten. So I want to send you a personal note to express my sincere apologies that I was unable to share information with you before the public announcement. I'm truly sorry about this. This was an extremely difficult decision for UCLA and personally anguishing. I and many others in our Bruin community greatly enjoyed the traditions and friendly rivalries that exist within our conference. I want to express the deep respect that I have for you, our other Pac-12 colleagues, and for the conference leadership. You know, making it clear that this was, went into more detail. We had to do this sort of financially because otherwise we were going to have to cut sports. And Dr. Kelsey, again, chair of the Pac-12, replied, "This was tough all around, but friendship first. You've been a great colleague and often a mentor." Remember, he's been CEO for a long time, and she's only been in that role for about 7 years. She says, "That hasn't changed, and I look forward to continuing our dinners and dialogues at AAU, APRU, and maybe even the UW-UCLA game. There will be more to come." So again, this is in the heat of all the craziness, and I think it's really important that we just kind of reiterate that these relationships transcend sports, and these folks really kind of stay together. I also want to share with you guys. So one of the other pieces, and we don't know what's going to happen with the Pac-12, but on the very day that Gene Block sent his apology note, San Diego State's President Delatorre reached out to President Kelsey and said, I understand that with change also comes opportunity, and I'd like to discuss those opportunities with you as soon as possible. And they immediately had a call with San Diego State and the chair of the Pac-12. So we will see what that leads to. I think it'll lead to San Diego State going there. And then finally, a statement from the Big Ten today with the confirmation. Big Ten Conference is grateful to the University of California Board of Regents respecting the decision of UCLA to join our conference in 2024. Landscape of college athletics is evolving, and the Big Ten Conference is blah, blah, blah. It goes on to celebrate this. It says, we will continue our methodical integration process of UCLA and USC into the Big Ten Conference. So this is essentially over. And by 11-5 vote, UCLA is out. Guys, what's next? Is it San Diego State and SMU? Do we stay at 10? What do you guys think?
Yeah, real quick on the like the 2 to 10 million thing, because I think you know this a little bit better. I was trying to read articles. One, you're saying it's annually, because I couldn't see like a confirmation of that. The other question,
Ben Bolch from the LA Times has officially confirmed that.
He said it's okay.
I mean, it was obvious from the calculation.
I saw some tweets from Ben, yeah, but I didn't see like and then the wording around it was kind of weird to me, right? It said it's like a UC Regents like recommendation, right? Like, I don't know how much politicking is going on there. Like, do we know what that actually means? Like, is it?
Yes. So so as you guys remember, the calculation that came out originally was that UCLA's departure from the Big Ten was going to cost Cal about $3 million a year. Cal was going to lose about probably $12 million a year from the media value of losing all of the LA's market. They blamed like $9 million of that on USC and like about $3 million of that on UCLA. Right. So the calculation is that the regents have said once the Pac-12 media deal is set, then the president of the university, Dr. Drake, the president of all University of California, will recommend for the regents to make the final decision on a calimony, a bonus payment of annually of $2 to $10 million that will be transferred from UCLA to Cal to be used to support Cal student athletes.
So my question about that is can UCLA say, we take your recommendation under consideration, we appreciate your recommendation?
No, the regents have said,
and we've decided to throw it in the trash can.
No, the regents have been very clear. The money is being taken.
Okay.
And there actually were what was it? 10 or 8? No, I'm looking how many paragraphs. 9 conditions as well that the regents put on UCLA. So they approved it on condition of like these 9 things, plus the payment was the 10th. And they're all the things that UCLA promised to do already, like work to mitigate travel, spend more money on mental health, spend more money on nutrition. They also have to survey, and they have to do some studies of what's going on with, like, how happy are students receiving the mental health and all that. And UCLA has to put a separate like $2.5 million aside to maybe have to subsidize athletics more with in terms of mental health and academic support for the student athletes as well for the first 2 years of the Big Ten.
So Chris, what do you think? I mean, you know more about the athletic budget than I would, and the number 2 to 10 million is pretty vague and pretty wide, but that's a lot of staff and coaching money that's going to be going to Cal. And on the flip side, how is that money? I don't know what their plan for their athletic budget is, but man, that's a lot of money to put towards staffing and coaches who might give them an advantage in the Pac-12.
Yeah. So, well, my first question is can we use that money that we're giving to Cal, since they lost their field naming rights? Can we call it UCLA Field at Memorial Stadium? And then since FTX went under, the spot's open. But the real question, it just all seems really silly to me. It's something that's like completely unprecedented in college sports, right? It's like only something that the UC Regents could like dream up. There's no like, I don't know of any other instance where, like the TV money coming into one school is going into the Southern Branch field. I don't think if you're taking money from if you're taking money from the southern campus, I don't know if you're allowed to be the flagship anymore. You know, I'm gonna get in trouble at Christmas, but like,
No,
like,
you become grandma. I don't know if you guys saw the new memes that have already come out of like the grandma saying, "I used to be the flagship," and the grandchild says, "Here's some money, grandma. Now go back to bed."
the whole thing just seems silly to me in the sense that, like, for the most part, like, Cal's athletic program has a huge budget deficit, and I feel like it's mostly like this is like a Gavin Newsom, like, got a couple political points by, you know, raising a stink about it, and we'll give them money, which will, like, because the big thing is that, like, if Cal ends up like defaulting and not being able to pay on, like, all that, if they can't pay off their loans at the stadium, the way I understand it is that, like, the UC Regents is on the hook for all of those funds, and then it becomes like a state of California major issue, and, like, politically, you know, it's not a great thing to have happen as governor, among other things. So, but on the other hand, it feels like a drop in the bucket. I know 2 to 10 million a year extra. Yeah, it would be nice, because, to be honest, we're not like a big time program money wise. You know, like, our NIL system is not set up the way other places are. You could see a world where you get, like, boosters to stop donating to the athletic department to kind of prop those things up, since more money is coming into the school, and more money will still come into the school than would have otherwise. So, like, net gain, it's best. But in terms of you know, wanting to have UCLA compete at the highest level it can, even though I don't think it's ever going to be, you know, it's never going to be like Texas A&M money or Texas money or USC money. You know, it brings us closer, and, you know, like you're saying, Tim, $2 to $10 million a year can do a lot of things, especially if you're, you know, defensive coordinators are getting paid, you know, like $1.5 million a year in the Big Ten. And I can tell you right now, we're not paying our defensive coordinators that. Like, the stat that Tony had, the chart of, like, coaches' salaries of, you know, of the Pac-12, and UCLA is, like, in the middle, right? It's not at the top. We're not paying Chip Kelly, you know, Lincoln Riley money. And at the time, it was like it was one of the biggest hires that could have happened that offseason. It hasn't worked out quite as well as I think UCLA fans hoped at the time. But, like, we didn't get Chip Kelly because we paid him the most. Like, I'm sure Florida could have given him a lot more money than we did. And we've never really been that kind of school to be able to throw all the money around in the world, or pay out, like, ridiculous buyouts. There's plenty of times in coaching in basketball also, which I think most people would think of as, like, our crown jewel of sorts, right? Like, people like Steve Alford sat around, you know, ruining the program for a couple of years longer than they normally would have, just because there's not the donor money or the buyout kind of money. The school just doesn't have the kind of funds. And so, like, yeah, to be supporting another athletic program seems very weird. And I mean, I jokingly made the point of Cal makes a lot more money than every other UC in sports. But
why isn't Cal
Cal's not
supporting
paying,
Merced?
Right, but Cal doesn't pay for, you know, subsidize UCI so that UCI can have a better and mascot and colors and a few other things. Yeah.
I like it. Reparations for
but Cal's not paying so that UCI can have a better basketball coach, you know, since they made the tournament one year. Why? Like, I love Cal. I grew up a Cal fan. It's my second team, but, like, at the same point, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'll leave it at that.
George Kliavkoff's in a tough situation right now, because essentially what the UC Regents did to gain faith with Gavin Newsom, basically bow at his feet and come up with a Berkeley tax. What that says to Klyavkov's future TV partners with the Pac-10 grant of rights, being Fox, ESPN, possibly Amazon, or enter any other streaming service. That's going to be a tough negotiation. So now you're dealing with the Pac-10 with no SC and UCLA, and you're subsidizing Cal, which basically says, it's like a table with three legs. They are not a whole team. They are a weak team. So you're trying to negotiate max dollars, and you're dealing with one of the 10 teams that's being subsidized by a richer team going to the Big Ten. Okay, that's one thing that George Klyavkov has to deal with. The other thing he has to deal with, and this is real because it was coming before this even happened today, was Oregon, Washington. I'm sure Utah is going to be there now too, because their chest is all puffed out because they're going to the Rose Bowl. Just check out any Utah fan on Twitter. But they're going to talk about unequal revenue sharing. Okay, they were already talking about Oregon and Washington to stay in the Big Ten, but they wanted to make more money.
Well, they remember LBC. They already offered UCLA unequal money. The Pac-12 already offered UCLA an extra $10 million a year to stay.
So if I'm Oregon and I'm up there and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Cal is going to be making, let's say, $35 million a year, and they could be making up to 45 because they're getting subsidized by UCLA. No,
LBC.
What?
They offered UCLA.
Oh, I got that.
An extra $10 million a year already to stay.
Exactly. But if I'm Oregon or Washington, and UCLA's gone now, and like you said, Tony, they already offered them more money to stay. That's strike one. Now Cal is staying, and they're going to get subsidized, let's say up to $10 million. So Cal is going to be making more than Oregon. So have fun, Klyavkov, trying to go ahead and take care of each of your teams with equal revenue sharing. And isn't that ironic? Because that's how this whole thing got started. So Oregon, Washington, Utah, Utah, the whack of the Mountain West. If you get equal to what Cal's getting, well, guess what? That's karma, baby. Because that's how this all started. That's it.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting. And we'll see. I mean, the nice thing, though, is this does clear the way for the Pac-12 to finalize its media deal, which it certainly has been in the works and is. I'll tell you guys what I mean. It's all indications are, and this is going to cause everyone with a little cactus in their emoji in their profile to come after me. But the indications are that the Pac-12 teams will be making more money than the Big 12 teams off media rights when this deal comes through, which is going to cause, Twitter will explode. It'll be kind of entertaining. But those teams these teams will come out okay. And again, like we said before, you guys have seen the numbers. You're going to have three nearly identical conferences of the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12, making really right about itself. As Will and D says, cannot wait to watch Big 12 YouTube and Twitter fall apart. They are going to, because it's going to be pretty funny to see. But the good thing is it means that we're going to have health. Those three conferences will continue to have health and will succeed. Sorry, what were we saying, Tim? I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was interrupting. No, Tony, you've been saying from the very beginning. You were saying, well, and I think I talked about this as well myself. Nowhere in the Big 12 do you have anything remotely close to the flagships are going to be Washington and Oregon. These where you have Washington with Seattle market
and Colorado and Utah
and with Prime and Utah with the resurgence. Arizona with what they have. Yeah, and then you look at where's a flagship in the Big 12?
The only flagship school in the Big 12 is Kansas.
And we're talking football too. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So the only flagship institution in the Big 12 is the University of Kansas. None of the others are flagships.
And bringing in a bunch of G5 schools didn't all of a sudden make them jump over what they have going on in the Pac-12. So that's always been my curiosity with them talking about larger TV and a bigger conference, and which one's more attractive. It seems like a lot of hot air.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and it's gonna be, the LFG. Yes, the LFG. They are going to be tearing up my mentions. It won't be pleasant. But I mean, the math is math, and the reason for that is markets like the flagship of the whole state of Colorado, the flagship of Utah, the the San Francisco media market, the entire state of Arizona. I mean, these are all big media markets that are worth big money. And also, by the way, guys, remember the Big 12 traded stability. They thought things were a little shaky, and Brett Yormark, and I think he's brilliant for this. He wholeheartedly did the right thing. In locking in an extension of their current deal that gets them solid and gets them solid now. Like I really think he did the right thing. The difference is, the cost of that is a few $1,000,000 per school per year. Not the end of the world, not that big a deal, but it gives them stability. Again, if you're trying to measure the length of your dong by these media contracts, then you're gonna be grumpy about it. So anyway, so that is the latest scoop here. All five. The big takeaway in the end is that all 5 Power 5 conferences are going to be all right. And that's good news for the future. All right. Well, shall we go on and talk about the bowls?
Let's do it.
We got bowls to pick. All right, guys. Sorry, we're going a little over here, and then we want to get some calls from you guys. But first of all, first bowl coming up. We've got the LA Bowl. Wazoo and Fresno. What do you guys think?
I'll just jump into it. I wanted to find good reasons to take Washington State in an upset. And not to spoil too much, but yeah, like I didn't want to go chalk in both games, take both favorites. But I had a lot of trouble. Maybe someone else will point things out to me, but I had a lot of trouble finding reasons to take the Cougs. This is a Fresno State team that had a very close game against Oregon State. They lost to SC and Haener got hurt. But then once Jake Haener came back from injury, I think they've won 6 in a row. They won the Mountain West. Wazoo's down multiple receivers through the portal and injury. They're all Pac-12 linebacker. Deion Henley opted out.
Yep.
The DC left for ASU. I mean, Dicker can call plays, and he's going to be doing that. But like, there's a lot going against Washington State here, in my opinion. As much as like we might like certain things that they do, and like their quarterback, if you're missing 2 or 3 wide receivers that you're used to throwing to all year, and you're all Pac-12 linebacker, it makes things a lot harder. And the crazy thing is, so like Fresno State has a chance to go from starting 1-4 to having a 10-win season, which is like an incredible thing to do, to go from 1-4 to maybe winning 10 games. And I think they do. So give me the Mountain West again for the second time, second year in a row in the LA Bowl. The Mountain West beats the Pac-12.
For literally every reason you just said, including also you left out. So not just Headley, but you also have Maui Goa, who entered the portal. They've lost a big part. So that's basically their linebacking core just got ripped apart. And you referenced Ward going down to join Dillingham down to ASU. And then the Haener effect. We saw what Haener, meant to this team. He goes down. They lose to the Fighting Jim Moras, right? And they go on a couple lose a couple of games, and when Haener got knocked out of that game. But you also talk about the fact with a healthy Haener, they just barely lost to OSU. It's one of the better, and we've seen it in our own conference. They're 10th EPA per pass allowed with that secondary they have. But Haener in that game against the Beavers went 29 to 49, 64% for 360. That's better than Caleb did against them. So yeah, go ahead and give me the Bulldogs. I think Hayner's going to have a good game. Cam Ward, I think, is going to keep it close. It seems like he's kind of worked on this interceptions, but also if you remember, you guys, the Trojans, we had trouble with that defensive line. I don't know if their ends are healthy, that end or whatever. That guy was tough, and Washington State's had a hard time keeping Ward, upright. So that also might become an issue in the game. But for, like Chris said, with Henley, Mauigoa out, losing their DC, I can't see them winning this game. So I'm going with Fresno State. Hate to say it, Pac, but that's our first one we're going to lose.
Well, guys, you brought up some great points, but you also maybe overlooked, but Eric Morris, who's the offensive coordinator for Washington State, was recently hired as the head coach at North Texas. And Eric Morris was the head coach at Incarnate Word, and he brought Cam Ward to Washington State. And so congratulations to Eric Morris. He's becoming a head coach. He's going back to Texas. So not only do you lose the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, you lose the guys that you talked about, and there's a total of 16 Cougars in the transfer portal right now. So there's a lot of change happening at Washington State. And you're going against Fresno State, Jeff Tedford, and as you mentioned, Jake Hayner, who's got something to prove. Guy's got a chip on his shoulder. He's coming to LA, and guess what? This is a 12:30 game, okay? This is perfect for those Fresneckies. Those Fresneckies up in the San Joaquin Valley, all right? They can get on the road at 4 a.m. They can get to LA by 9, tailgate, get their drink on. And they don't have to get a hotel room. They can get on the road at 6 and get back up to Fresnecki by 11. So this is perfect. All their money's going to go to Texas to tickets and booze. And they are going to bring down the red wave from Fresnecki. That's what's going to happen. Okay? They want this game. Beautiful SoFi Stadium. They're going to make themselves at home. They are going to beat Washington State. Sorry, Cougs, love you, but you are going to lose this game.
Yeah, so real quick, I'm not going to change my pick, but the fact that we all have Fresno State and we all have all of these these plethora of reasons for why Washington State can't hang in the game, and they're for some reason still only like a 3-point underdog, makes me feel like we're all going to look like very silly unless Tony takes a solid for the team right now and takes the Cougs.
Well, I don't think against Tanner.
That spread has swung 7 points since all this news came out. There's a lot of momentum.
Has it moved? It opened the other way. Like,
yeah, I don't pick against Jake Hayner's the man. I am team Jake Hayner. I've seen what happens when Jake Hayner comes down to LA. Jake Hayner couldn't even stand up, and he's throwing touchdown passes.
Can he stay healthy? Hold on, Tony. Can he stay healthy at LA? Because he's 0 for 2. Remaining healthy through 4 quarters in Los Angeles. So
didn't you say Mauigoa is gone and their other linebacker Henley?
Yeah.
Who's going to hit him? Come on now. Come on, Tim.
Yeah.
You can't speak out both sides of your mouth. Don't be SEC on us. Come on.
I'm team Hayner. I'm team Hayner. I hate to say this, the Pac-12 through the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl remains winless in our 3rd season of bowl games.
I'm putting a 7 on this one. Because we're going to be doing the confidence, right? We're going to apply a confidence factor 1 through 7 on the 7 Pac-12.
I don't have my math on that one.
Okay. I'm giving this one a 7, meaning I am the most confident that Fresno State is going to win this bowl.
I agree with UT Regent Gumby. Wazoo has the athletes to win, but Jake Hayner is Jake Hayner.
Yep.
If we're doing that, I'll make it a 3.
But I haven't looked at their bowls, so I don't know.
Next up,
fine. We don't have to do it either way.
The Vegas Bowl. Vegas, baby, Vegas. We've got the Beavs and the Gators. Now, this is a big storyline because this is the chance. Utah laid a Gator egg in the swamp. Will the Beavs avenge Utah's loss to Florida?
So there's some things giving me pause in picking Oregon State real quick. You know, some people know my SEC Vandy ties, which I won't get into, but I also have some Gator in-laws. You know, and as Tony just mentioned, this is a Florida team that beat a Pac-12 champion Utah, and the same Utah that, you know, crushed Oregon State at home. You know, so by transitive property, Oregon State's, you know, in trouble against the very big bad SEC here. But transitive property is stupid in major sports. And you've lost your mind if you think I'm not taking the Beavs, because the Beavs are the squad. I only did it once.
Is there an hand gesture for the Beavs? I don't know. Flappy tail.
There should, couple of fangs maybe. I'm doing it, but you can't really see it. Yeah. So yeah, I only picked against Oregon State once, and it was in that Utah game, which was like a terrible spot after the SC loss at home, and that felt dirty. Florida doesn't want to be there. This is a Florida team that, you know, they beat Utah at home by amazing luck and early season Utah things in the swamp. But this is also a Florida team that lost to Vanderbilt, which few teams can say. Their quarterbacks declared for the draft, Anthony Richardson. They hardly ever leave the state or the region, so they might even have trouble finding the stadium, LBC, I think. Like, I don't know if Florida has maps that go past the Rocky Mountains, so hopefully they can actually get there. But I'm not sure, so maybe, you know, the Beavs might just win by default, because I don't know if Florida can find their way there. Give me the Pac-12 Coach of the Year, Jonathan Smith. Give me the Beavs. That 10-win season we've been waiting for all year, Connor's happening. Let's go Beavs.
Yeah, those Beavers. So you have the problem at court. So we all know that at quarterback, Richardson's going to be out, right? He's going to opt out for the NFL draft, and they dismissed their other quarterbacks. That leaves the transfer from Ohio State, Jack Miller, to make his first start against, and we just talked about it, an amazing secondary for the Beavers. And that's not going to bode well for them. They're missing like 20 scholarship guys, either to opt-outs or to transfers. So they're playing with a completely depleted roster. Like Chris said, there's a motivation factor. These guys don't really care about the Las Vegas Bowl, and sorry, Beavers in the crowd. They're probably looking down on, we're going to play the Beavers. Really? I mean, why are we even in this game? So I'll keep it short and sweet. The line movement has been also just all Beavers on this one. I think 5 points. It started out 5, now it's at 10. And I just really honestly think that, given the opt-outs, I still think, I'll stand by this. I still think that the Beavs give them a great game, if not win flat out. But with the guys that they're missing, as well as they're all first team All-American, Osiris Torrance, he's out getting ready for the draft as well. I don't see them showing up wanting to play or having the horses to play. So give me the Beavs.
LBC? Oh, LBC, are you frozen?
We have internet, yeah.
While we figure out the internet real quick, just on the confidence thing, this is my 7.
Okay, so doing, I'll
we're not doing that yet because we don't have the math to that.
It's fine.
Yeah, we can figure it off air, because
I just wanted to throw it out there that this is,
you're not confident at all.
You
are confident.
Yeah, the Beavs are gonna handle business.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, while we wait for LBC to turn back in, I think this is where the Pac-12's bowl streak of futility ends. Oh, now we can hear you.
Yeah. Nope, now we can't.
Oh, can't hear me.
I can hear a little bit of what you're saying, but I see your mouth movement. I'm not hearing anything.
All right.
You're there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing, but Oregon State is the 5th or 6th best team in the Pac-12 this year, based on record. And Florida is the 10th or 11th best team in the SEC. And from everything I've heard historically, the SEC is a much better conference than the Pac-12. I'm not telling you any lies. That's just what it is. But Florida fans are making excuses already. And let me tell you, the last time that Florida played a scheduled out-of-conference game was, Jesus Christ, I don't even know how long. But the last time they went west of the Rockies was in 1989. That was the year I graduated at SC. And look how gray I am. I'm an old fart. All right? But they played in a bowl that doesn't even freaking exist anymore. That was the Freedom Bowl. And they lost to Don James's Washington team. Don James passed away, God bless his soul, probably like a decade ago. They played in the Freedom Bowl and they got boat raced 34-7. Okay. And Washington was a decent team. They were 8-4. So Florida, shame on you. Shame on you, SEC. Make all the excuses you want. But you are going to be beaver bait, baby. Beaver bait in Vegas. This is a game that I'm looking forward to because make your excuses, SEC. Play the shell game. Love it. Oregon State's going to roll. Freaking build that dam, baby. Tony?
Tony's frozen now. We're doing musical chairs with the internet. Hey, we're so short on that topic.
Sorry, my
Also, I've
internet
heard
was
it
being
dancing
slow.
around.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have nailed it on the head. Yeah, musical chairs with terrible internet. Guys, this night is connection awesome for all of us.
It's been hilarious.
I think this is I think this is where the Pac-12 bowl game streak ends, and I think Jonathan Smith wins it. I mean, the thing about the Beavers too is this is a team that beat Oregon without throwing the ball, like at all. And Mark points out, Florida's been a great team most times in 1980. Also, Florida plays a major non-conference game in state, at least one, sometimes two, every year, so that there's some reasons that they don't travel as much. But they're playing with taking half a team to Vegas. Who knows what'll happen? But I'm giving my vote to Benny Beaver on this one.
I'll let Mark know I'm biased. I'm sorry, but if you got the greatest coach that Florida's ever had in Steve Spurrier, and he couldn't make it west of the Rockies, well, hey man, I'm sorry, but you're a regional team. You're not a national team. All right. And the Beavers are going to make up for what Utah and Oregon couldn't do. Okay. They just laid an egg against the SEC. Oregon State is going to roll. There you go.
All right. Well, it's going to be a fun one. Hey guys, let's take just a minute real quick before we go to some calls. We lost a legend this week. A legend in the Pac-12, a legend in the game, somebody who influenced the Pac-12, somebody who influenced the entire football world, and whose coaching tree has influenced everywhere. And let's just take a minute and talk about what we're going to miss most about Coach Leach.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get to what I'll miss the most real quick, but I thought you talked about the coaching tree, right? And just to really quickly put a cap on that, what I thought was crazy is the college football Reddit Twitter account, which I think is a great follow, had this tweet about the 2002 Texas Tech Red Raiders, which Mike Leach was coaching. It had the following feature head coaches as assistants: the Hawaii head coach Greg McAmon, Dave Aranda, Art Briles, Dana Holgerson, and Sonny Dykes. And then playing on that team was Lincoln Riley, Cliff Kingsbury, Louisiana Tech head coach Sonny Cumbie, and then Wes Welker. That's one team in 1 year it's like it's absurd. And then going on beyond that, I don't think there's like a more college football personality of like the like the silly, funny things that you can have happen in college football, which makes college football great to me compared to some of the things like in the NFL. Is what Mike Leach brought to the table, and it was amazing. And I remember it was a ton of fun when he was in the conference at Washington State, both on the field and off the field. So yeah, no, it's he had a ton of influence on the game, and rest in peace.
Yeah, I really always loved the Mike Leach isms and the way he talked, and I had a lot I was going to talk about, but one thing I really like, you just talked about all the guys that from his tree and the influence that he's left on coaching in college football, but also we also know his air raid, and we know that he and Mummy originally got this idea out there, but a lot of people I've been listening to, they've been talking about also his innovative ideas in practice, how he's able to become efficient in practicing. Like we watch guys warm up now, you see a couple of quarterbacks and guys running routes, and they're all throwing at the same time. That's also a Mike Leach thing. And watching a guy that's innovative like that, USC was lucky enough to have a guy like John McKay who brought forward this idea of the I formation, which changed football, for a long time. It was a staple. And even at every level of football now, you see elements of what Mike Leach has brought to the game. And it's just amazing that one guy can have such a huge influence and have absolutely zero chance of getting into the Hall of Fame, because the College Football Hall of Fame has some stupid rule that you have to win 60% of your games in order to get into the Hall of Fame. So you have guys like Leach and Howard Schnellenberger that have over 500 wins, have just been amazing turnaround guys and got maximized programs, and they're never going to make it into the Hall of Fame because of these stupid rules they have. And he was like, I can't remember what show it was, but they say he was like three games below 60%. So I'm hoping, I'm thinking people are reasonable. This might be something that tips the edge, where they start looking at, we have these numbers, we have this criteria, but it's really not showing, we're talking about a Hall of Fame, and a Hall of Fame is more than wins and losses. When you have a man like Mike Leach who changes the sport like he has, and has the wins to prove it. And remember, Mike Leach, look at the teams Mike Leach.
Right, the program he's been at, I completely agree with you. And in a system that's not equitable, right? Unless you're in California and you have to give Cal money because you're UCLA.
It's called calimony.
Right. No, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but it's just like an awesome point. Is like in a system that's not equitable, to say that like you can't be like, you can be a great coach at a program that isn't going to win 10 games a year just by the product of like where that program is. And that doesn't mean you can't be a great coach or have great seasons.
At Texas Tech, playing in the shadow of Texas and Oklahoma, right? In the Pac-12 at Washington State, playing the shadow of Washington, USC, UCLA, etc. Going to the SEC and being the coach of Mississippi State and playing the shadow of Alabama, Georgia, LSU. This is a guy that's gone and won in conferences with literally the like traditionally one of the worst teams in that conference, and taken them to championships. Those Mike Leach Washington teams, those were tough sons of bitches to beat. They would move the ball on you. They'd have a quarterback that would probably look like he should be in high school, but it didn't matter who he put there. His coaching and the way his teams played, he would come at you. Even the best defense would have a trouble with anything Mike Leach threw out there. So for you to tell me this guy is not a Hall of Fame coach, it just makes me pissed off, really.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is he made football more interesting. He I think really defined what coaches should be, in that he was interested in people. He was interested in their stories and their lives, and he was interested in the world around him in a way that I think more people should be. I did laugh. Some of the people he's coached with have said, yeah, that was because he wanted to talk about anything other than football because he didn't want to give away information that would help your team that week. But he's just a unique character, and our world is a little darker without him. And the heavens got a lot more fun, a lot more beachy, and they're going to throw for a lot more yards and score a lot of points. So we'll miss you, Coach.
My takeaway on Mike Leach is he never had a team that made the college football playoff. He never coached a Heisman Trophy winner, but he did. Because just the night before he had that heart attack, Lincoln Riley had a quarterback that won the Heisman. And Mike Leach was responsible for Lincoln Riley getting the coaching. And Sonny Dykes also had a finalist. And Sonny Dykes was on his staff in 2002, along with Lincoln Riley, Dave Aranda, Sonny Cumby, Art Briles. I think I might be missing one or two, but they were on the team or were on that staff at Texas Tech. And so now you have Sonny Dykes going to the college football playoff. Lincoln Riley's been there 3 times, hasn't won a game, but he's made it 3 times. But his coaching tree is it's huge, and it's going to continue to foster new coaches, and his legend will continue to grow. And it's pretty amazing because that's exponential. And what Mike Leach has done for college football, yeah, sure. He's maybe 3 games short of hitting that 60% threshold winning percentage. But I'm going to go ahead and pull a card from the bottom of the deck that Boo Corrigan and former heads of the college football playoff will always like to play. It's the eye test. Okay. When in doubt, when the facts don't measure up to the agenda you want to present, I'm going to go ahead and pull that. Well, you know what? Mike Leach passes the F and I test. He should be in the Hall of Fame. So there you go. That's the beautiful little thing about college football that levels all the quirks. So God bless you, Mike Leach. And thank you for being a great coach at Washington State, and then taking everything you learned from Texas Tech, Washington State, going down the SEC. You were just getting it rolling, and how fitting that the last game you played was the Egg Bowl, and you beat Ole Miss. So congratulations. God bless your family. May you rest in peace.
A couple of names we left off: Josh Heupel, also Neil Brown
out of junior college.
Neil Brown and Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not sure if we said those names, but
and Dave Moran.
His tree is just insane when you really think about it.
Coach, we'll miss you. All right, guys. Now we want to take a minute, and we want to hear from you guys for a little while. So we've already got a couple folks already waiting in the back, but anybody else that wants to join, we want to hear what you think about the Pac-12 this week and the things we've talked about. So you can either scan the QR code right there, or we'll put the link in the chat. But let's start with, let's bring on, we got Will ND and Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. Guys, welcome to the Pac-12 Chat Show Live.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
What's up?
How are you guys tonight?
Doing good, I'm hyped for these games, man.
Tell us about which ones you're ready for.
Well, I'm really interested. I really want the Cougs to do it, especially with Jake Pickard. But I think their D-line can hold their own. I am worried about the linebackers, though. But I think the D-line can hold their own. And I don't know if Cam Moore can match Jake Hayner, but I think maybe they could put similar points on the board. And he can, even though the wide receivers are new, he can place those throws in the right spot, and that they can make plays.
We'll remember, though, they lost both their coordinators.
Yeah, but they had co-coordinators
as well.
They had co-coordinators, so it shouldn't be too bad for them.
But who's been calling the plays, though? Just what I mean, So I agree. We're going to see Dicker's going to call the defensive plays, right? And I like Cam Ward, right? He's just raw talent. He's a great talent. He's cut down on those interception numbers. His numbers have been going up. I do like it, but remember, we also they lost. They lost 2 stud linebackers. It's just going to be hard. There's a big hole right in the middle of their defense that they're going to have to somehow overcome. And I hate to say this, but schools like Washington State, they're usually not too deep on talent. So let's see what they can do though. That defense, the front seven was tough. They gave everyone fits. Let's see if they can continue that.
Because I was looking, they had 2 second-team All-American guys. So if they can get to Hainer, make him make a mistake maybe, or just hit him, make him rush his throws, so they aren't always on the money. That's what they got to do.
It's all going to come down to Hainer, because you think about it. If he had not have gotten hurt earlier in the season, Fresno State could be 11-2. Because they only lost to Oregon State by 3, and he played, and then he got hurt in the USC game, but they were going to lose that game anyway, more than likely. And then after that, they lost 2 other games, but then once he returned, they've been lighting it up. So Fresno State's a fantastic team with him, and he's a great quarterback, one of the most underrated in the country still, even though everybody knows who he is now, but he's just fantastic. It's all going to come down to whether Washington State can, make him uncomfortable. I don't know if they can, because Washington State against Washington couldn't stop Penix, against Oregon couldn't stop Bo Nix. Maybe Hainer's not maybe as good as those guys, but he arguably is. It's going to be very tough for them to stop him. And it's more likely going to be Fresno. You never know. Washington State can win, but it's going to be very tough for them to stop him.
You made a good point about the record. I mean, I joked about the Fighting Moras, but that Connecticut team turned out to be better than everyone thought they were going to be, right?
Yeah,
and,
they did.
And they got hammered by Boise State, but they beat Boise State.
Yes, they avenged. That's the loss they avenged in the championship game.
Yeah. So
and then the other 2 losses, and then the other 2 losses are Oregon State barely, and like in a very good game, and then SC, who was almost a playoff team. It's not like they have like bad losses, and half of them were like when their quarterback couldn't walk.
Yeah, and I really do like that. I remember that they were getting pressure on Caleb. He was just moving around. So I think they can really bring it to Fresno. So it's gonna be a hell of a game, I think.
By the way, I love how bothered everyone in the chat is about Jimmy Kimmel as like a show sponsor of this. Like, people are not that bothered about like Poulon Weed Eater, or like there's so many worse sponsors that like don't bother people, but for some reason, like a not very funny talk show host bothers people. It's pretty funny. I'm laughing. I mean, continue away. It's up to you guys.
Kimmel's probably just a little bit too California for many people. I don't think it's the name. I think it's just the personality.
Yeah, I don't watch the show at all. I'm just sort of laughing about like.
Yeah, I don't know.
The visceral reaction is pretty funny.
Isn't he the same guy used to be on that like MTV show and MTV had shows or whatever, and just get drunk all the time and a bumbling idiot? So I don't really know why people even pay attention.
I don't think
the Man Show with Adam Carolla.
Yeah, dude, that show was actually pretty funny. Actually,
his personality has changed a little bit since then, though.
Yeah, no, I mean exactly. You get to go on the show. Beefs had a fun time on Kimmel. So I guess you get to go on the show if you go to the bowl game. So that's cool.
Do people actually watch Jimmy Kimmel? I don't think I've ever watched that show.
My parents used to.
I don't know. I'd like to, but I agreed to do this. So now I don't get to. No, I'm just kidding. I don't really want to. What? Hey, Will and Jeffrey, what do you guys think of the Vegas Bowl?
I think the Beef should roll. I think they'll cover the spread.
This is a very important game for Oregon State, because you cannot lose this game. If you lose, with Florida having basically, as Mark pointed out in the chat, half their players are gone. Most of their important players are gone. That would just be a horrible look, especially it's out in Vegas. There is no reason why Oregon State cannot win this game. They should roll, as Will said. But, man, you don't want them to slip up and keep it close, and then something happens and Florida wins, and then there's going to be a meltdown.
Now, Jeffrey, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But is there anything more Pac-12 than losing a game when the world says, there's no reason you should lose this game?
That's my point. I'm with you, man. I'm afraid for them.
That has Pac-12 SmackDown written all over it, doesn't it?
I'm afraid.
I see Damian Martinez smacking down those Gator defenders and having a huge game.
Maybe, who knows? By the way, I hear the Discord server for Florida Florida players is not very well moderated.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Sorry, that was probably a cheap shot. Anyway, too funny. And by the way, guys, as we keep going here, to anybody else who wants to join the chat, we'd love to hear what you guys think about UC Regent Gumby. We want to hear what you think about the big adventure of the Calamony. And same with you guys too. I mean, this was a big deal today that went down. So we'd love to hear what you guys think about it. And we may have more next week as we get kind of more details about what went on. I think that a lot more went on behind the scenes in the closed session, because they just popped right into that open session, passed those things, and took off.
Well, if Florida does beat Oregon State, that'll mean that they beat the number 6 Pac-12 team, and then somewhere between the number 2 and 5. Wasn't there like a 4-way or 3-way tie for the 3-way tie for the bowl game, right? For the championship game. Weren't they all tied? That's the one thing I keep hearing about. Someone was batting around the idea that although they won they won the conference championship game, but before, if I remember, before the game happened with Utah, wasn't everyone complaining that Washington should have been in, and why is SC playing Utah, etc.? So that's because there was a 3-way tie for second place. So the whole idea that there's the number 1 team in the Pac-12 was Utah. You guys got to go back to what you guys were saying before the championship game. Just adding that out there as well. Just adding that out there.
And by the way, UC Regent Gumby points out the meeting was at UCLA. The meeting was also delayed for a protest, which had nothing to do with the Big 12 or the Big 10 or the Pac-12. There was a protest about like academic wage rates or something like that delayed the thing, and I think 10 people got arrested like at the Regents meeting. Rumor is George Kliakov was not one of them.
Also, big news in the Pac-12 that was non-football related that kind of hit earlier this morning was after 5 years, the University of Arizona basketball team was found not guilty, and Sean Miller was not found guilty of any improprieties.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me, man?
That's
None.
absurd.
Yeah.
None.
So basically, all the self-imposed bans and penalties were acceptable to the NCAA.
Where was Paul D for this one, LBC?
What's that?
Where was Paul D for this one?
6 feet under, Tony. 6 feet under. That's where he was.
I got news for
I
you.
cannot believe that. How?
Yeah,
Paul D is in a special 10th circle of hell.
God. Yeah,
The reason why is the NCAA is a toothless. I wouldn't call them a toothless tiger. They're like a toothless kitty cat at this point. Just been declawed. They're like an English cop that says freeze, or I'll yell freeze again. You know what I mean? It's just like they have no control over anything. So
the biggest
that's embarrassing for that. That's the last NCAA. That's the last straw. They should be disbanded. Disband the NCAA.
The biggest irony.
No, but here, you guys, the real task is going to come to see what happens when they have to deal with ASU.
The biggest irony about Paul D is his team, his former team, Miami, is just handing out bags left and right to anybody.
Unreal. Okay, hold on. We can't get going on Paul D because I will throw something and then it will break my camera.
Yeah.
I can't break my camera yelling about Paul D. The neighbors will call the police. It'll get ugly. Paul D can burn in hell.
Oh yeah, you took the words out of my mouth.
No TF. There's a 10th circle and it's reserved for Paul freaking D.
Yeah, that's right.
The 10th circle is reserved for Paul D. Call Dante. We're adding a chapter. Anyway. Oh, too funny. You guys in the chat. You guys in the chat have been a riot tonight. UC Regent Gumby, LFG, Mikey G, DeReal, TF, Ralph, Connor. You guys have been fun tonight. I've been liking this. We had a good group. We had a couple of like foul people early. They got flushed away. And now we've had some fun. So we've had a great group.
Question for you, Chris. What do you think? What do you think about the Dante Moore visit? Do you think that UCLA has a shot?
Oh gosh, no, not really. I think it's like a very I think it's very unlikely. I mean, I think there are reasons that he is talking to us, but no, I don't think that that's happening. There's positive stories about it on like the message boards and whatnot, and saying the right things, but like people, it's good that an official visit went well, but if again, if he wants to play right away and Bo Nix is coming back, right, then it's hard to argue against the offenses that we've had, and he would have a chance to play right away. But again, I struggle to see us going up head to head for a guy like that if Phil Knight wants to open the pocketbook for whatever reason he wants to, so long as he's willing to sit for a year. The only reason he goes anywhere else is because he wants to try to play right away, and Bo Nix is staying. I mean, the point Ralph makes too is like, yeah, if he wants to play in the Big Ten and he's a kid from Detroit or whatnot, right? I mean, there are a few reasons, but again, just like I've seen this story so many times as a UCLA guy. Gosh, what was the name of the linebacker out of Georgia under Mora, who's killing it in the NFL right now? And he literally had gloves on signing day. And then, it turns out like 5 hours later, he's like, he's playing for Georgia. Even though he announced for us. God, why can't I remember his name? Plays for the Bears, or he did at least recently.
Roquan?
Yes, exactly. Roquan Smith. Like anytime we're in, back then the money wasn't over the table, and now it is. But again, I talked about like our program and where we are in the like stratosphere of like financial status and whatnot. And there's certain guys, and I'm not saying that like that's the only thing that's in part of like these decisions is money. Oregon is a great football program. I said that they were the best team for much of the year in the conference. They've kind of fell apart at the end. Like I'm not trashing Oregon when I say that it's like that the money thing is. I'm more complimenting them in the sense that like we can't compete with the SECs of the world or Oregon or SC when it comes to NIL. And, I just don't I think it's very unlikely that we get in. There are reasons that he could flip. The only reason, real quick, that makes me think, and this might sting for the SC guys a little bit, is that Chip's done this when it doesn't make any sense before, when he flipped the Anthony Thomas last second. And no one knew about it. And that's the only reason I have any hope in the world, is that like something like shock the world kind of thing could happen. But again, I personally put it at like 5% or something. I'm not going to get my hopes up. I've seen Lucy pull the football on Charlie Brown at UCLA far too many times to get too excited. And we're talking about a team that we've trashed, and the staff that we've trashed for how terrible they've been recruiting out of high school for the entire time they've been there. So like maybe he has a rabbit in the hat, but it's remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Guys, real quick. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tim. And then I have another question for you guys.
Well, I was going to try to see if I get Mikey in here, because why I was asking why I think it originally thought it had some substance to it was because of the fact that, man, Oregon. So they lose Dillingham, right? Which I'm wondering, Nick stayed after Dillingham left, which is interesting. But they've also been hemorrhaging players to the offensive players to the portal, running backs, receivers, etc.
They took the money and now they're running.
Well, I'm just thinking with Mikey, if you can come in here, I'm not talking smack at all. I'm being legit. I was wondering what, because I was with Moore. You have Dillingham, you had Thompson. What's the name of the receiver? That stud receiver. I'm just wondering what they have left there, and now he's heading in there. Now, Oregon's always going to recruit well, and they're a portal target for half the country. So that's another.
I'm sure they have more stars at wide receiver recruiting ranking wise than we do.
Well, that's what I'll say. The problem is you lost Duke kid. I forgot his name already. My goodness. You lost your Bobo. You lost Bobo, and I don't really think you have much.
You're selling him the system same way that you're selling any running back that comes here. Is you say like people are like, oh, Charbonnet's gone, and granted we will not be the same without Charbonnet and DTR like being a 5th-year senior. That's like a very great thing to have, and Charbonnet's a great back. But I will say that under Chip Kelly, the offense has never been an issue, and every year people say like, "Oh, you lost this guy." Like Tim used to talk about, like, "Oh, you lost Chase Cota," but like it really wasn't that big. Like every year at running back, like Joshua Kelly, like you could. Like,
I see running back, but we're talking quarterback. And when I think of Kelly's offense, I think of a heavy run.
Right. So my point being with the quarterback position being new is if you're selling it, you're making the point of talent, right? And I think if you're selling it to him, you're selling the point that like, yeah, you might not like 24/7 arrivals might not have a lot of stars next to these kids' names, but if you look at what we've done since I've been here, it doesn't matter what the name on the back of the jersey is. We're gonna move the ball and we're gonna score points. So if you want to get your name out there and you want to go against, you want to be crosstown rivals with the Heisman winner, and you want to play in the Big Ten, and you want a chance to start right away, and you want to play in front of 5 people in the Rose Bowl.
Damn it, you stole my joke. I said 5 people and 5 tarps, I was going to say, but yeah, you got it.
Yeah. So yeah, but again, I think highly unlikely, but there's a reason he had to visit.
Yeah, if you get that invite from Chip Kelly, you're going to come at least check out, and UCLA, you're going to come and check out what they have to offer. So, I think he stays in Oregon.
Speaking of empty stadiums, one other big news item, guys, or is it? We don't really know. Stanford stole Sac State's quarterback, and Coach Taylor is now taking over the Stanford Cardinal program. Is this going to help, or are they in for more of the same? I'll be honest, I don't know what to make of this one.
I think that Stanford's going to struggle and continue to be toward the bottom of the conference.
It just depends.
I think it's just too hard for institutionally. And I have some notes about Taylor. Like it's an interesting story, right? Because he coached as an assistant. He was like a quarterback at Colorado. Yeah, and he coached at Cal under Mariucci, wide receivers, and then under Homo with like quarterbacks and tight ends. And then he
played after our favorite Cal quarterback, didn't he?
I don't know. Did he?
He's quite a Cal guy. Coaching for Stanford. That's an interesting backstory. He's a total Cal guy, but he's coaching for Stanford. But
I think aren't Cal's football, basketball, and baseball are Stanford's football, basketball, and baseball coaches all 3 from Cal? I think they are.
Wow.
The Stanford I know the Stanford coach was coaching at Cal right before, I think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he went there or not. I can't remember.
Coach?
But that might be true, yeah.
Yeah, the baseball coach is coaching there. The basketball coach and the football coach both played for Cal.
Right. So then he went to but it was weird because he was doing that, right? And then he went to go coach high school, and he did some radio for Cal. And then he was offensive coordinator for Utah for a year or two. I'd be interested in a Utah fan take. My understanding is that they don't really miss him that much. Yeah. But he's done really good things at Sac State. They've won their conference it's a different level, right? But he was very successful in high school, which again, very, very different level. But he won his conference 3 years in a row, tied it a couple times at Sac State. I just think no matter how good of a coach he is, it's going to be a really uphill battle at Stanford going forward, because they're just not going to be playing the same game that the rest of the country that cares about winning is going to be playing. And you can go to they're going to get guys that want to get a great Stanford education, and there are those kids out there, but I think it's going to be real hard. And we've already talked many different weeks of how the transfer portal for Stanford is a one-way portal. I just think institutionally it's going to be really hard for that school, and it's no matter how good of a coach you are, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and we covered that right a couple weeks ago when Shaw got fired. Just the issues with grad students, and just getting guys into losing guys to the grad use the transport portal, and then also just getting kids into the program in itself. It's just a battle, one that they were losing, and as much as they lost momentum with coaching, and I think also we talked about this in the past, losing guys like Derek Mason, and the guy at Rice right now. But overall, it's just who are you going to attract there at Stanford now? Do you know what I mean? It's one of those situations. Who are you? What top name coach or what top 25 coach are you able to pull in, established coach to Stanford? You got to hope for a diamond in the rough, and I think that's what they're going for. They're going for a guy with a hot offensive system and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was kind of like the point I was going to make about Troy Taylor. Is I don't necessarily think it's a bad hire per se from what he's done at the lower level in the FCS. But the problem is that hiring him shows you that Stanford's not really that dedicated right now, because what Stanford's been doing for the last, 10 years, before the last 4 years, how they won, you would think that they could get a bigger name than Troy Taylor. And again, nothing against Troy Taylor, but a guy that has experience at the Power Five, or something. They didn't do that. They're not getting any players into the program. The academics, everything's against them. To me, it just looks almost like they're giving up. And I hope they're not. I hope somehow that Troy Taylor is able to, figure out a way to win, even though everything's stacked against them. They're able to get some players to go to Stanford, but it just kind of looks like they're almost throwing in the towel.
Well, Jeffrey, I'll tell you, I debated the same thing as you, and then a friend of mine told me, and I don't know whether or not this is right, because I have been torn, because I thought the same thing you did at first. I was unimpressed by Jason Garrett, and then when they said they were getting Troy Taylor, I was like, oh God, what are they what is next? What's wrong? And a friend of mine said that he thinks that Stanford actually has a phenomenal program built, and that what they need is somebody to come and re-energize it, but not to necessarily rebuild the program, like the infrastructure and everything like that. And they need kind of a shot of fresh air into what is already a good program. But the real question is going to be, is the administration willing to look at things and say, okay, time to make a change? Now, Colorado did that. And Colorado's administration, and I mean, from the regents on down, has committed to do what it takes to win. And Jeffrey, I was 100% on your thought and your train of thought. And my friend, who's a little bit biased in this because he's a Stanford guy, was saying he thinks that Stanford is going to start doing what it takes to at least be better. So I don't know. I've been torn on it, because I'll tell you, Jeffrey, you and I were exactly 100% aligned on that same thought at first.
I agree with your point. I think that what my
friend's point, I'm not claiming responsibility for it.
I think that he has validity to it, but it's all going to come down to if the administration will support the football program. If they do, and they're able to get better players, because at the end of the day, you have to have players, as we've talked about on our live stream on our channel the other day with me in Austin. I was like, you have to have players to win. You can have great coaches, but if you don't have players, you're not going to win anything. You have to have better players, and Stanford does not have that right now.
Well,
so if they can get the players in there, then they can win.
Someone older than me might have to speak to it, but I mean, I don't know about the John Elway years at Stanford, but after the 70s, Stanford has been kind of a mess. And here's what you get to hear from the Stanford fans. Yeah, but we also got an FCS coach that came in and changed the program trajectory, because they're going to start talking about how Jim Harbaugh came from FCS, University of San Diego, I think, where he's success.
Yes.
And he came and he kind of changed the way the Pac-12 was, because if you think about it, that when he came in, the Pac-12 had gone to more of a spread offense, kind of, like a really pass happy kind of situation. And then all of a sudden you have this guy that comes in and he brings in like 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, maybe a couple of tackle eligibles and these huge jumbo sets that they have, and completely had the other side of the spectrum where it was just heavily running big smash mouth football. And it was hard if you were a defense to figure out, are we going to stop Chip Kelly's offense where they're spreading the ball all over the place, playing tempo, or are we to go the complete opposite with Jim Harbaugh, where they're again, they have these huge offensive lines and they're just running the ball, controlling the clock, and smashing us around. And so both those guys had just picked apart the defenses in the Pac-12 because they started to get somewhere in between. They couldn't really defend either one of them, and it was hard to cover one, let alone both these different types of very different offenses. So I'm not saying that that's the situation they have now, but I guarantee you that's what you're going to hear from Stanford is, well, we had another FCS coach came in and changed our trajectory. Why can't this guy? So,
guys, I really want to get a Stanford fan on the Voice of College Football, because I've actually never talked to a Stanford fan. So
I'm not sure if they really exist. They may, but I've seen them at basketball games and football games, but I'm not even sure if they just are fans or they're just wearing the hat and showing up at the game. I don't know. They surely don't show up at their stadium, that's for sure.
Well, Mark makes the point that Stanford has their number 23 in team talent composite. I mean, so he's saying they have talent. I mean, sure, they do, I guess, but it's just it's got to all mesh together. The coaching staff, the coaches, everybody on the administration, the players. It's all going to have to work. And then they're going to have to be able to navigate through all these tough times that are Stanford with NIL and the transfer portal. All of it's got to come together. If they can make it work, then Stanford can be a good team again. But it's going to be a lot harder to do that now with a lot of other Pac-12 teams that are improved, and they're not going to want to give up those spots. It's going to be a tough climb. It's not impossible. So I'll say that it's not impossible. Stanford can turn it around, but it's going to have to take a lot. Players, coaches, and the administration is all going to have to mesh together. And if they can, then maybe Stanford can improve again.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was joking, Mark. I've worked with a couple Stanford football fans, so I know that they're out there. There's far and few between. And then, but you talk about the talent composite. Remember this: talent composite just looks at how many stars they have on the entire team. So, for instance, if you have, I don't know, Helton, you have like 4 or 5 5-star wide receivers, but you've got 3-star offensive linemen. You still have a high composite, but you have a crap team. So when you look at these composite scores, they take into factor the entire team. And a lot of times, some of these schools will have a lot of talent at 1 or 2 positions, but not enough talent spread throughout their roster in order to be competitive. So
that's a great point.
Those talent composites can be really deceiving.
I basically, when I was talking about Stanford earlier in the season, the offensive line was the problem. I said over and over again that Tanner McKee's on the ground more than he's standing up. And that's just because their offensive line is horrible. You're right, Tim, 100%. You have to have talented players at all positions. The great teams do. And even 5 years ago, Stanford had great offensive linemen that are in the NFL. When you hear, when they announced the rosters, there's still Stanford offensive linemen in the NFL. That's why they were able to run the ball. They can't do that anymore. They can't run the ball very well, and their passing game, they have an immobile quarterback who's obviously has NFL talent potentially, but he can't do anything because their offensive line stinks. So you're absolutely right, Tim. Same thing with USC. If your offensive line's bad, it doesn't matter how much talent you have around the rest of the team. If you don't have a good offensive line, you're not going to win. Hardly.
We could end the whole conversation there. When you said Stanford's offensive line is terrible, Stanford's offensive line is stinks, I think you said. But when you had Bloomgren there and they had their intellectual brutality, and they were landing time and time again these insane offensive linemen, right? Because usually they say, usually the smartest guys on the field are not the quarterback. It's usually offensive linemen, and they're all going to Stanford. And the difference you have now is I think they're all really going. Those offensive linemen, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, Pac-12 out there, they're all going to Oregon now, and they're not going to Stanford. And that right there, along with coaching, along with the grad transfers, they just aren't landing those 5-star NFL offensive tackles anymore. All those tackles are now going up to Oregon. So that's also hurting them.
Well, I think part of it is Troy Taylor was a quick, safe hire. And I don't think Stanford knows what they want to do. They're at the crossroads. I think they were blindsided by David Shaw resigning. I think David Shaw is a proud guy. He saw what he was up against. He knew that at the time Stanford was not going to participate in modifying their admission standards to play in today's college football. As you know, it's changed dramatically in the last 2 years, and they just cannot get the talent that the other teams in the Pac-12 and the rest of the country are getting. I think they have 16 or 17 players in the transfer portal right now. So this is a placeholder. And to what Tim said, hey, yeah, we got this FCS guy. We can catch magic in a bottle like Jim Harbaugh. That's the PR spin from Stanford, but they don't know what they want to do. And until they figure out, hey, are we going to stay playing, FBS football at this level? They're just going to continue to flounder, and they're going to be at the bottom of the Pac-12. They don't know what they want to do, and they got to figure it out. But Troy Taylor, he's going to do his best. He's he comes from Sacramento State. They can rely on him being a successful FCS coach. But in terms of getting players out of the transfer portal and participating in NIL, Stanford is just not going to be able to compete with, like Tim mentioned, all the offensive linemen are going to Oregon and other schools. And it's not what Stanford was once under Harbaugh and Shaw. And so now Troy Taylor has got to do what he can do, the best he can do, the new energy, and see if he can, place his mark on this team and get Stanford trending in an upward direction. Good luck.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting. All right, guys.
I think they're going to have a decent offense, but I don't know. I don't trust. They got to make a good DC hire for Stanford to be any good. Like just to make a bowl game. Like at least get like a good defensive coordinator in there with Troy Taylor calling the plays. I think maybe they can scrape the 6 wins, but it's going to be tough with how good the Pac-12 is looking. Like there's really, right now I would say them and Cal are going to probably be, and maybe Colorado still and Arizona State are going to be floundering for that 6 and 6 spot. So good luck to the Cardinal, but it's going to be tough.
It's too bad. I know we're winding down, Tony, but it's too bad we can't get Mikey or maybe even Ben or someone, an Oregon fan, on here because I'm curious, and it's a topic maybe we can do for another time. But a lot of the talent, and funny enough, they are recruiting very well still at Oregon right now with Lanning. But I'm wondering how much Coach Prime is going to take away from that recruiting pool that's been going up to Eugene for a while. Now that you think Riley is going to continue to improve his recruiting down here with Coach Prime moving in to fill in a void, really, to where kids are going to go. Maybe the guys that we're going to miss here in Southern California, there's a lot of talent's going to go other places. I'm wondering if Oregon will continue to be the recipient of all those guys, or if Coach Prime is going to be a big factor in getting, who they're getting up there in Eugene. So maybe that'll be a conversation for a different time if we get one of those Duck guys to come on.
Coach Prime is going to get anybody he wants nationally. He's already doing it. He flipped, Will knows this, he flipped a running back from Notre Dame. And
Dylan Edwards.
Dylan Edwards. He can go down to SEC country, he can go to Big Ten country. Depending on the quality of player and the position, he can get whoever he wants, and he will. And some of those.
I don't know about everyone, Rick. I don't think he can get anyone he wants. You still got to go against Georgia and Alabama. You still have to go against.
He got Travis Hunter at Jackson State. So he has a very good chance of put it this way, whoever Oregon is looking to get, he has a very good chance of getting that player.
I'm with you there. Yeah.
And he'll lose battles, but he'll go against Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, and I mean, he will. He's not going to win them all, but I put him at 80%. That's a pretty good closing ratio.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to do some damage. That's why right away I thought about who's this really going to hurt. Sure, it's going to hurt USC, I think, to some degree. But again, I think you're right. He's going to do a lot of like national recruiting. But I also think he's going to grab the LA kids that maybe you're going to say that UCLA and USC aren't for us. And the recipient lately of those kids have been almost directly going to Eugene. So I'm just thinking that him coming in might be direct competition for Lanning and his recruiters. So it'll be interesting to see going forward.
And on a day when the Arizona basketball school, after 5 years, was found not guilty.
I still can't believe that. I mean, it's going to take a while for me to get over that.
That's open season for Deion Sanders because, hey, NCAA doesn't have any teeth, no enforcement. And even if they did, they're going to take 5 or 6 years to figure it out. So they're not touching NIL or transfer portal. That's just too confusing for them. They don't want to participate in that. So it's open season for Deion Sanders, wherever he wants to recruit.
If Deion gets enough good players, man, they could be really good really quick. It just depends on how many he can get this quick.
And, and that's for any school. And that includes Uncle Phil, Uncle John Ruiz down in Miami. So, hey, it is what it is. And Uncle Phil saw some reports today on Twitter that he's going to be at Oregon for this last big recruiting weekend before the dead period starts on Monday. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Just passing out duffel bags or what?
There you go. Uncle Phil's 84 and he doesn't have much more. So hey, they got to get it done. I'm sure Bo Nix will make an announcement on Monday that he's staying at Oregon because Uncle Phil, it was good to see Uncle Phil over the weekend.
Well, I mean, and the thing with Nix is there's a lot of good quarterbacks coming out in this draft. He might be sitting back and realizing, all right, Caleb's going number one. Maybe I got a chance to be one of the next guys on the docket. But I mean, it's a rough year to come out as a quarterback, I would think. That might be playing in their favor.
All right. Well, on that note, guys, I think we are about at time. We're actually over what we had our goal for tonight. We've had lots of topics. I think somebody put it best when they said, what does it say about the conference that the bowl games are like the third and fourth most interesting topic of the week? So with that, let's start with Jeffrey. Any final thoughts for the week here in the Pac-12?
I'm just looking forward to the bowl games that are coming up all around the country, but these two Pac-12 games that we talked about tonight, Oregon State in Florida, Washington State, Fresno State, be really good for the Pac-12 to get both those wins. But the most important one, Oregon State, again, you got to beat Florida. It would just look terrible if you can't get it done. You got to beat Florida. Half of Florida is Oregon State's better than half of Florida. You got to be able to win that game. And if Washington State can beat Fresno State, that would be a huge win as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for joining us, Jeffrey.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Will, any final thoughts?
Let's go Beavs. Let's go Cougs. I don't know. It would be nice to see the Pac-12 get on the off to a wing now in the bowl season. And I don't like to shell out my stuff that much, but I've been working to get these interviews going for the bowl game. So I like to interview the students that run the student newspapers for the schools. And me and Jeffrey did the Wazoo one today, so it was great. So if you can go over to Young Guns and check it out, I just think it's really good what we're doing to showcase the students and how they feel about their teams and how their season went. So yeah, I think it's really cool what we're doing over there.
Everybody, if you're not following Will and Jeffrey, you are missing out. So definitely follow their channels. They do really, really fantastic stuff. Will, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
TBM.
Hey, I don't have much new to add, but thanks again, everyone, for coming by and hanging out. Thanks for Will and Jeffrey calling in, and thanks for JJ for joining us earlier today. look forward to watching some bowl games this weekend. On a side note, I'll be at Madison Square Garden, so I might have to be watching on my phone a little bit because I'll be checking out the Bruins against Kentucky in basketball. But looking forward again one more time for another Beavs victory and that 10-win season we've been waiting for. Have a good one.
See you, Chris.
Hey, Chris. LBC.
Hey, I'm thankful for Tony for tuning in to the UCLA Board of Regents, getting us all the information on that. Thanks a lot to JJ for coming back on the show, and appreciate the viewers in the chat for sticking with us with some technical difficulties. Hopefully, we were able to get that corrected, and hear some great knowledge by JJ about the Heisman and the upcoming Cotton Bowl with Tulane. Thanks to all the viewers in the chat that came in and supported the show. Appreciate it. And good luck to Oregon State and Washington State in their bowl games this weekend, as well as the rest of the teams. And thank you, Mike Leach. That was a tough one this week. I love Coach Leach for his just being unconventional and being the person that he was, that he spoke up honestly for things that he saw, that he agreed with, that he didn't agree with, and he did it in his own special way to create awareness and change. And he was the change. He is the change. Take a look at, I heard Greg McElroy speak on his show. He says his fingerprints are all over football at every level. Back when he was playing high school ball, 7-on-7, it was air raid. Air raid concepts were all over. You take a look at that at Texas high school football, 7-on-7. You look at all of college football and everybody we talked about that was a Mike Leach disciple. And then you look at Patrick Mahomes, went to Texas Tech, and the things that he's doing with the Kansas City Chiefs. And the NFL teams are having to adjust to a new style of football to stop Patrick Mahomes. You heard about JJ saying that, teams would have to stop Rodney Peete or stop Caleb Williams. That is what good players demand. That's what happens. So a lot of great knowledge today, and appreciate Tim and you, Tony, and Chris. And thanks a lot for Will and Jeffrey. Always a fun time. Have a good night.
Talk to you soon. Oh, Tim, you're on mute.
As always, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tony, for getting us all together. And then Rick and Chris, you guys are truly awesome. Another great show. Really appreciate everyone that comes here every week, especially our Pac-12 fans. We're hoping to just, tell your friends out there. We keep trying to grow the Pac-12 fans. We appreciate all fans, but really trying to get some more participation from you guys. So feel free to let us know about your team. But as far as talking about Coach Leach, the coolest thing I heard, there's been so many great stories. We don't have time for all of them, but the one thing that Joel Klatt said that I really appreciated how he worded, he said, the one thing about Coach Leach was he was not a prisoner of his peers. This is a guy that definitely marched to the beat of a different drum. Just an amazing person, just an engaging person to listen to talk about anything from candy to aliens and UFOs. But really a great mind. It takes a mind like that to reinvent football like he did. And he's going to be missed in a lot of ways. And I'm just glad that he had a moment here in the Pac-12. Not really happy with him beating USC, but just to know that he's one of ours, you guys, and wish his family and his friends and the entire Michigan State football program, our thoughts and prayers are with them. And go Cougs and go Beavers. And I'll see you guys soon.
We'll see you soon. All right. Well, what a week, guys. This is really wild because we've finally been able to put the Pac-12's past with UCLA and the Regents issue to bed. And now the conference can move forward, which I think is really exciting. As we talked about, on the same day that Chancellor Block sent his apology note to Chair Kelsey from Washington. San Diego State immediately contacted and said, with change comes opportunities, and we want to talk to you about opportunities. So I think today is going to be monumentous because today symbolizes the start of new adventures for the conference. New adventures as Coach Prime and now Coach Taylor really start to move the conference forward, and it's going to be interesting and exciting. So thank you to everybody who's joined us tonight. We had like I said, just some awesome folks in the chat. We really appreciate having you guys. Thanks to Mark, and thanks to our entire community. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great night.